Guys, Kevin Hart's in this new movie on Netflix, but I want you to take your best guess as to what it's about. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's about him being a dad. You knew that already? What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving into the new Netflix film Fatherhood starring Kevin Hart in a more dramatic role. This is different for him. Usually he's in these comedic roles, which we'll talk about in this review, but guys, I was able to see this early thanks to the team over there at Netflix, and it is now streaming exclusively on Netflix this weekend. It's directed by Paul Weitz and starring Kevin Hart, Howery, Alfre, Woodard, DeWanda Wise, and even Melody Hurd. This cast is stacked on paper, guys, and if you don't know much about the movie, I know it is about Kevin Hart being a father, but let's dive into the story just a little bit. Matt is a father bringing up his baby girl Maddie as a single dad after the unexpected death of his wife, who died a day after their daughter's birth. Now, this is a very tragic story, and I'll talk about whether or not the movie captures the authenticity that the story at least sounds like it has. But before we get into that, guys, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where we talk about movies and TV early like this all the time, like iCarly. We talked about the reboot this week, and so much more. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, and also get loud in the comments. Let me know if you've seen Fatherhood already. What did you think of it? Do you agree with me or disagree with me after you watch this review? And go ahead and smash that big thumbs up button if you are a fan of Kevin Hart or Melody Hurd, because guys, I'm not gonna lie, she's a gem. Alrighty, y'all, let's get right into what I liked about Fatherhood, and honestly, I actually thought Kevin Hart's dramatic acting worked in some scenes. A lot of people have been prejudging Kevin Hart before heading into this film, thinking that he just can't capitalize on being that dramatic actor that the movie calls for, and yes, he's a golden comic. I think he's really good at what he does there, but in this space, there were some moments where I was feeling what his character was emitting on screen. There are a handful of moments where I really bought into his relationship with his daughter Maddie, and for some reason, Kevin Hart can really cry. When Kevin Hart just broke down on screen when he learned about his wife's death, I really was locked into that moment. Now, the movie wasn't locked into the moment, and it didn't let it marinate on screen, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And outside of Kevin Hart, there's actually a very capable cast around him. Melody Hurd plays Maddie, and y'all, she is a star in the making. I really loved her performance in the Amazon original series Them. Even though I didn't like that series too much at all, I still loved her acting, and she was the standout for me there. And here, she's yet again another standout. She's able to balance the more adorable moments and the serious conversations between her and her father, Matt. And then there's DeWanda Wise, who is in the movie much more in the second half. She plays Liz, otherwise known as Swan, and the way she's able to interact with Kevin Hart and Melody Hurd, they just have this synergy together that is pretty infectious. And while she's a supporting actor for the most part, she is excellent in the time she's given on screen. She has a vibrant personality that vibes very well with Kevin Hart and Melody Hurd herself. And her character adds a layer to this story that it desperately needed, because the script itself is pretty thin outside of the characters trying to do the best they can with it. And I guess that's a good segue, guys, right into the negatives, because that's unfortunately all the praise I can give this movie. Fatherhood really falls short of the mark due to the direction and the writing in the film. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the directing by Paul Weitz. I'm sorry, guys, the entire movie feels like it was structured at the last minute. While I understand what he was trying to do by playing with the chronology of events, it just dragged along. And then the movie goes on into a full sprint past some of these more important moments, especially for our lead character here, Matt. When he finds out that his wife dies, we don't live in that moment with him. We're not actually diving deeper into the psyche of his character. Unfortunately, it's just skipped on over, and we just go right along. I don't understand that decision. I also don't think that Paul Weitz ever captured what should have been a more genuine story by the end. He films this as if it were a very bad made-for-TV movie, and unfortunately they didn't really capitalize on an idea that does sound like it would be heartwarming or even bittersweet by the end. Unfortunately, I was just a little bored. That's due in large part to the length of this movie, which didn't need to be as long as it was, and then there's also the writing, guys. Oh, the writing. The script is actually written by Paul Weitz himself and Dana Stevens, and it's adapted from a book written by Matt Loughlin, who the movie is based on. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the script never felt like it understood its cast. There's a lot of misfired humor here and overabundance of tropes that just don't give the movie any sort of shine, and then you have conversations that go absolutely nowhere. Let's take low-rate Howery for example, who plays Matt's best friend, Jordan. He spends the entire time projecting his own sorrows about his life onto Matt and trying to cheer him up at the same time. But the problem is none of his punchlines ever had any punch, but that's not his fault. I know he's a capable comic and a capable actor, but it's the script that's given to him that never gives his character any sort of justice, and him as an actor, I mean, I feel like they just never understood, again, the cast itself. There's also this awkward moment where he's hitting on Matt's mother and mother-in-law, and the joke doesn't end, it just keeps going on and on and on. And to be frank guys, for a movie about a single black father raising his daughter, this movie has no authenticity, and that's due in large part to the writers. They're both white, and you can't really expect white writers to understand the inner workings of a black family. It just doesn't work, and there's a lack of authenticity here. Okay, now let's circle back to the acting guys, because you might notice that the legendary Alfre Woodard is in this film too. But sadly, the film also misuses her, and I am just heartbroken because I love Alfre Woodard. I've never seen a film or anything that she's been in that I've disliked, but make this the first one. She tries her hardest, just like her other co-stars, but the script, like we talked about guys, doesn't know how to write for her. And honestly, I just think this happens to about every other member of the cast as well. It's sad, and they do deserve better, but guys, overall, Fatherhood is one of those movies on Netflix that, well, it didn't go to theaters for a reason, and unfortunately this is not the most complete film of the year, and it's going to go down as one of the more forgettable movies of 2021. Kevin Hart tries his hardest in this movie, and he really does try to break out of his usual comedic shtick to provide a very dramatic performance, and like I said, there were moments that worked for me. Melody Hurd, DeWanda Wise, they are amazing in this movie. Just from an acting standpoint, like from what they could bring to the table, they're very good. But the thing is, every time they have conversations with one another, it's unnatural. Nothing about this movie flows, and there is hardly any pacing to it at all. While the cast is impressive on paper and the idea does sound good, I do think Fatherhood is a complete miss, unfortunately, and it's one movie that I can tell you I'll be thinking about as we get closer to the end of the year. So guys, there you have it. That's my real review of Fatherhood, and I have to tell you, I really was hoping for more from this film. But hey, I want to know what you guys have to think about the movie, so when you watch it this weekend, let me know. Get loud down below and tell me, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let's have a conversation about it. And if you haven't already guys, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel and smash that bell and thumbs up button if you again enjoyed this review and want to see much more. Guess what we got next week guys? Fast 9 baby. It's about family. Alrighty y'all, again thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.